Business agility. We heard about digital transformation. We probably heard about that word for maybe too much, actually, for the last few years. Everybody's talking about it. It makes perfect sense that we're all in IT now. But for some, it's not just about whether or not you are agile or not. It's something about, like it says, agility that is actually impacting not just IT, but everybody outside of IT as well. And there are many ways of describing that when it comes to also project portfolio management. In my opinion, it's too easy to say we have programs, portfolios, and projects. We have way many more elements and levels within the organization when it comes to this, and when it comes to agility. Here's one example of a framework that is actually kind of taken from EY, who made a transformation framework back last year. There are many frameworks out there right now, especially from those management consulting companies. Here's one example on the different levels. Still talking about running projects, but with an agile perspective and for the whole organization. First thing is the alignment, having business drivers, having a strategy, being able to measure whether or not a certain project or some of projects are performing against those drivers. Integration is something like we blend running projects together with new ideas to see if it makes sense to change a running project and instead run an idea, or do both. Governance, something else as well, you probably know that word. Value extraction, benefit management. Is the project really ending just because you've reached the finish state? Or is it about to end when you have harvested your benefits? That's another way of ending a project. Organizational change as well, making sure that people know what's going on and that they feel a need for actually doing it. And then we come to something called projects, programs, maybe bundling projects, I'll get back to that, but also collaboration across all divisions. So the thing here is that project does a lot for you, and it's not just project management, even though the word project might be a little confusing. So I tend to call it PPM, all up. But that's just one example on project delivering value on many levels when it comes to frameworks also for digital transformations. The classical scenario that you might have seen, tried today, is that left side you have a traditional way of working, which would essentially be your waterfall approach to running your projects. You start by planning them, you make a detailed plan, you allocate some resources, you make some milestones, you set a baseline, and then you run it and you track it and you close it. Which is fine for some kind of projects. On the right side, you then probably also have people doing this lean agile approach to running initiatives, which essentially is saying, here's your money and some resources. You have 1 year, let's say that that's the case. Do something good about it. Go talk to customers, get that feedback, make some rolling releases every Friday, go straight to production if it's in IT. And the thing is that if you have been working within a project management office, you've been used to pushing people on the left side, asking for input, making sure that they are compliant when it comes to your governance. Have they done what they should do before the next month is about to end, and so on, or this month is about to end. But those on the right side, they don't really have an end date. They don't really have the same kind of KPIs. They talk cadence, velocity, user stories, story points, strange words for PMO, classical PMO setups, and very difficult to align and put on top of something called money. In the middle of these two points, we have something that might not be a project management office, but maybe should be a portfolio management office, grasping both ways of working, grasping both worlds. So I think a lot of PMOs right now are struggling to figure out whether or not this P stands for actually projects or something else, because those on the right side don't have project manager, and they don't have projects. They have something else going on. So if you're just a project management office, they might not go to you and ask for your assistance or help in any ways. So I think the thing in the middle is now what we see that gets translated into digital management office, digital work office, portfolio management office, those kind of things. So again, on the top left side here, we have the traditional way of working, which is where everything started top down. You had portfolios, then you had some programs maybe, then some projects, then some tasks, and you were looking for finding a PPM system that could manage projects like that and track them bottom up. In the lower right corner, you see the in my opinion, most lean, agile approach to running initiatives right now, which is the framework and processes and methodology by the institution called Scaled Agile. We do see some banks and other large companies such as Spotify, Philips, ING, who have been trying out being Scaled Agile for a few years, and yet they ended up being Scaled Agile, but with some twist at the end. Scaled Agile, for those who are familiar with it, is a very big A1 pager you can print out with a lot of new roles and processes, right? It's also the same thing as Prince2 or PMI's book for how to do things. The thing is that you don't need to take what it says and do it, you know, all the way down to the very detail. It's a guidance for how you could do, essentially, and then you take things from that and then you wrap it and make it fit into your organization. There is no one way of doing DevOps or continuous releases. There's no one way of doing it. There are many ways of doing it. So it's more than just, here's the framework, go do it. But regardless of you being in box 0 or 3, there are some steps in between you need to take before you get there. Because when you are all Scaled Agile, you have no project managers at all. Nobody will have the title project manager. Then they will be called something else: product owners, scrum masters, program managers, release train engineers, those kind of things. So essentially, not a lot of people have removed the title project manager. I can only name a few companies that I know who've done it. So in between those 2 points, you have to be something else, because you certainly don't want to be just traditional. So one thing is the bimodal approach, which you probably have heard of before, where you split up your ways of working into 2 buckets, obviously with a total budget, the organizational level on top. So in this case, you have an agile way of working in one part of the company, and you have the waterfall traditional way in the other part of the company, therefore bimodal. The other one is that you say, well, we manage our portfolios, our value streams, the same way, but how we actually run the work, how we actually execute it, and how those Scrum Masters use either a whiteboard, Planner, Teams, Jira, Trello, Basecamp, blah, 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 we don't care. As long as they are happy. That's the other way of running. In this Agile with PMO, you still don't have project managers, by the way. And then we have the other one called hybrid, where we say, well, sometimes the work we do is grouped by both the Agile way of working and the traditional way of working. We have a company that produces hearing aids. In the hearing aid, you have software. That software can be released every Friday, but it's not going to go into that hearing aid every Friday. But they do software development in an Agile way. But the actual product, the hearing aid, is obviously released with one big bang and a one big go-to-market campaign. So regardless sometimes of how efficient you are in your continuous software development, your actual product the software goes into is only released once. So you will have sales and marketing, product owners, and many others asking for your IT people to come up with some deadline for when you are done. And in the session just before, we heard we have done, and we have done. And I think sometimes we have to ask for the done. It's done. We have had a system demo. It's done in the way you can put it into your product. That's something else. So with just a hand of a raise, I would like to see how many believe that right now you are in the bimodal situation in your companies. Okay, roughly 10. And Agile with PMO? 1, 2, 3, maybe, yes. And hybrid? Also 10. So I think there's a fair split between. How many are in the traditional? I have to ask them. 1, okay. And I'm assuming nobody's all Scaled Agile? Okay, good. So a fair split of hybrid and bimodal, and nobody really in the middle. And interestingly enough, those who come to me at least and ask for advice on tools typically come in with the Agile with PMO approach to defining what they really need or what they believe they need. Until I ask about the project managers. That's another thing. Good. So regardless again of the system or the framework you're using, you have many ways of bringing in new ideas or initiatives. Business cases, typically the traditional way of describing something. Epics, and remember epics takes place on different levels. Portfolio epics, program epics, and so on. So an epic is not just an epic, it depends. Initiatives could be for those who are not, they don't know what Agile means, they don't know what a business case means, but still they do something here and there that essentially could end up becoming some kind of change proposal. So the thing is that we have different ways of getting input, and the good thing is that on the high level, most of these new initiatives share the same things. The business case has something like, let me just go ahead, scope and justification, cost benefit, timelines and milestones. That's the minimum you need to put into it. And Epic on the portfolio level, even according to Scaled Agile themselves, they have a template for this you can download, say the same thing: scope, justification, cost benefit, timeline, milestones. And I believe those doing ad hoc work as well will have something about, we're doing it because of this, it has this cost, maybe these benefits, this is the timeline, I'm going to deliver it here. So I think essentially at the high level, we all talk the same language. And therefore we still have a need for the PMO, but maybe with the word P as in portfolio rather than project. Out of those ways of working, we get portfolios, maybe one, maybe two, depending on your split. I have another saying on that in just a second. And out of those portfolios comes, hopefully, business value. So on the right side, you will still like to see, regardless of how they are being executed, those projects, your priorities or your projects in some ways showing, if we spend money here, we should spend it on this because this gives quite a lot of value at a low cost, and so on. And we see this curve also in Microsoft Project in the tool that I'm going to show you. And we use this proactively to manage what should be done first. In this case, looking at costs. If it was agile, we would probably look at weighted shortest job first, which is another concept that Microsoft Project can also take in.